Well, tonight we're going to be looking at Matthew 6. It's still part of the Sermon on the Mount. It's more teachings. It's not the blesseds. We went through those the last week or so. But tonight we continue on with that as Jesus is teaching his disciples several things that counter what the Pharisees was telling people, how they were teaching people at the time. So Matthew 6:1 says, "Take heed that ye do not your alms before men to be seen of them, otherwise you have no reward of your Father which is in heaven." What's alms?
Charitable deeds.
Yep. It's whatever you do when you're doing it with nothing expected in return. Okay? Whether it's something for the church or something for your neighbor or anything like that. But I tell you, last week, the neighbor called and said, "Can you come over and watch our cats for a few days?" And I said, "Sure, no problem." Went over and they showed me, where it's at and everything, gave me the key. So I said, okay. And then last night they texted and said they made it back. Everything was fine. And I told them a couple times during the week. She was concerned about the cat, so I told them, yeah, cat's eating a lot, eating like a horse. I'm feeding putting more food in the tray, so it's doing fine. Never did see it, but it's doing fine. So come over today and took the key back, and he gave me a gift card. And I'm like, you don't have to give me a gift card. I just, Anyway, that's what you just do it, not expecting anything in return, is what he's doing. Now, the Pharisees, on the other hand, at the time, they wanted to make a big deal about it. We know some people that might fit that category, that wants to make a big deal out of anything and everything they do. I've had one person that come and told me one time, I was staying with them for a little bit, and they was like, "Well, I did this today." And I'm like, "Okay, don't you normally do that?" I'm like, "Okay, I think I do that all the time." But some people, it is a big deal to them. But the problem is they want you to know it. And they're not really doing it for the purpose that, they're helping you out, but they want to know you do that. A long time ago, I got broke of I consider it, to me, it was an issue. I'm a fairly young Christian, and I was telling somebody I prayed for you this week, And I said, okay, I hope you've been praying for me all the time, or something like that. And it just kind of struck me funny. So I said, okay, I'm done with that. I'll pray for people all the time. I ain't telling them no more. That don't, for some reason they didn't appreciate it. I don't know. I guess I got a bad feeling about it.
Expect you to do it.
Well, yeah, and it's one of those things that whatever we do, they ought to be thankful for what somebody's doing for them, because sometimes they can't do it themselves even. Some people are in that way, but we can do it, help it, and we should just go right on our way, not even worry about it. But that's kind of what it was taking. Jesus, it says here, has just clearly shown God's righteous standard. Perhaps he anticipated the thought, wouldn't everybody be impressed if I was like that? So here Jesus addressed the danger of cultivating an image of righteousness. It's almost impossible to do spiritual things in front of others. You ever thought of that? Without thinking, what's their opinion? I read an email this week talking about, and it's been kind of good. I've been to several different churches. I mean, our church, of course, but even big churches and little churches in our church and different churches when we were moved away. And I know early on in my life, one of the first churches that was at, it was common Sunday, you'd wear your best. Well, some of the people's best was their cleanest bib overalls, and that's fine, that's okay. But today, it's kind of come and gone. I mean, today, well, 20 years ago, everybody's wearing a suit tie and, dresses and everything, or 30 years ago. And so today, it's almost the other side. You see churches and the pastors are coming out in flip-flops and shorts, and nothing against that, okay? I wouldn't want to be sick. We were floating in the Dead Sea. I put the picture today. I was floating on the Dead Sea, and Darla goes, "Look at all those white legs." They never see the light of day. And it's just like the way it is. So, but anyway, we want to do things. But the Pharisees was not. What do we think about when we think about a Pharisee? I know, but watching The Chosen, it kind of helped us a little bit. But they all had this regalia on, and it kind of like some of the churches that we go to. The minister has this regalia on, I'm the preacher, I'm the pastor. You walk in here, it's like, hey, who's a pastor now? You look around and people, sometimes they don't know. It's some of the churches that we have. And that's not bad either. That's okay too. Visitors, I'm saying. Hopefully the people know. But anyway, the Pharisees, they did it for a reason. They wanted to grab attention. They wanted the attention to be on them. That's why the high priest was, of course, the only one that could go in and out in the Holy of Holies. But that worked up to be almost a political appointment around Jesus' days. So we just have to be aware of that in our lives, and like he says, take heed. Don't do as they say they don't do as they do. A lot of people, saying, do as I say, don't do as I do. Well, that was kind of the way that they were then. And it goes on further in 2 through 4. Brother Epperson, you'll read that?
Therefore, when thou dost thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have the glory of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. When thou doest alms, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doth, that thine alms may be in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly.
Okay. Now it says here, it was a custom in Jesus' days to draw attention to their giving, so they would be known as they're generous. We don't really find any place in the Bible that it says anybody sounding a trumpet, so we're not quite sure. I think that was a little hyperbole on Jesus' part as far as telling them, don't rent out a band to show, what you're going to be doing. Just do it. And how is it possible that you do something in your right hand not know what your left hand does? I mean, that's physically impossible, isn't it? But what does it say? What does that mean? Do it and don't want anything in return for it. That's what it is. That if you do, your right hand, yeah, you're going to know what it's doing, but it's like, just do it because you want to do it. Don't do it for the purpose. Here again, that is a work for doing something, but God will reward them for that work. There's many people that do things and, what they want is a pat on the back, which is okay. People need that. But if that's all they're doing it for, then that's not good. That's not something that, you know, we need to be.
I love the part there where it says they have their reward.
They do.
Their reward is to their horn.
That's right.
I mean, and then he said, hey, listen, you take care of business and I'll reward you.
Yep. Yep.
But
There was,
sometimes people wonder, you know, well, how come somebody don't ever, well, if you're tooting your horn all the time, that's a reward. I mean,
there are people that do that a lot. They want to be like the life of the party type person. They want to be the ones that's, you know, bringing things up. And sometimes, you know, I go by the other adage that it's better to not say anything, to open your mouth up, and prove yourself you're really stupid. You know, you say something stupid. I did that one time when I was taking photographs. It was at the state convention, and I had to leave the state convention. The Broken Arrow paper had called me to go cover the Miss Oklahoma pageant. Go down there and take a few pictures for them to get it splashed, because Miss America, the former Miss America, was there, and they wanted some pictures and all that. So I was writing it all down, you know, and taking the pictures and all this. And you know, I wasn't really paying attention to what they told me, and so as I took a picture of Miss America, I said, okay, and what's your name? And I didn't hear because somebody was talking, you know, at the same time, and I thought real quick, how do you spell that? She said Smith. And I'm like, you know, something really simple, whatever it was, or Jones or something. Yeah, you just like, okay, I may have stepped in that one. I didn't mean to do that. I wasn't trying to make aside
from there, I pulled years when I was in Vietnam, okay, and I was 19, and I was standing around with the guys one day, and I've always wanted a Corvette, okay, and these guys, well, they were talking about their hot cars.
Oh yeah.
And they really had hot cars. Okay, I was just blowing it and going. They had hot cars.
Yeah.
So I made mention about how mine and I was running about 8,000 RPMs is what I said, and then a little later on, even to this day, every time I think of it, it embarrasses me.
Yeah.
Because a little back then, the engines, 283s, 327, 8,000 RPMs, and they would be all over the road.
Blow.
I mean,
Yeah, they would blow up.
And, you know, I was trying to impress everybody, but I didn't know didn't know what I was talking about.
That's right. That's right. Sometimes we talk above our level, so to say. One of the things it says down here in B says that this word that they use up there, these people, is hypocrites. He uses that here in a little bit. And hypocrites, they're actors, they're performers, is what it is. That's where the original name come from. It says they are acting the part, in this particular part, they were acting the part of pious, holy people when they are really not. It is not having a standard that makes someone a hypocrite. It is falsely claiming to live by that standard when in fact you do not, or when you have a double standard that makes one a hypocrite. I've seen that before. If you've ever watched some movies, some of the actors, and I've never acted, as far as I know, worth anything, but they will do stuff like, okay, for the 6 months or a year before they go into the movie, they live that life, whatever. If it's a bum on the street or whatever, they do that in order to get into their mode of acting. And that's okay. That's the way they do it. But at the end of the day, when they're finished with that job, that was just a job. They were just acting. That's not the way they normally would do it. And that's what it's trying to call attention to us. We need to be authentic. We need to be original. We need to be, whatever we do, we're showing. If we're actually doing those works, we need to be that way. Jesus tells us that the one who gives so he can hear the applause of others, that he should enjoy the applause, because that will be all the reward that they receive. And that's Barclay spells it out here a little better. It says, it is all they will receive. It would be better to translate it, they have received payment in full. The word used in the Greek is the verb pitchion, which was technical and business and commercial word for receiving payment in full. So they've already, whenever they get their applause, they get their reward. One of the things is, at this age, it's okay, but my little granddaughter, she played t-ball this last year. And of course, mom would tell her, well, somebody's coming, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the first game, everybody was there, G-Mom, G-Paw, and her side of the family and everything. That was good. We was, go. Last game, she asked, who's going to be there? She wanted to know. And then after a while, she was doing something. It wasn't in t-ball, but something like that. And she looked at us and she goes, clap, clap. She had done something that she wanted. And it's like, no, that's not the way that goes. You need to do something, not, she thought it was cute or whatever.
But I'm here.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that we have to be careful how we teach kids, that is a very easily can get confused to them. Iris, do you want to read 5 and 6 for us on page 4?
And when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly.
Okay. So he goes a little further than that, and he says, these Pharisees, don't be like these hypocrites. And he didn't call them out, but he's called them before. He's talked about them before. Don't be like them. Now, the synagogue service, people would call on them to pray. They would have a prayer. And that's appropriate to pray then. But then if they are the ones, oh, choose me today, whatever, they're wanting to have that attention for them. And that's not what Jesus said to do. When you go to pray, you need to go and pray in secret. And that doesn't mean, you can. There's the whole movie, The War Room, where this little lady had her little closet and got in there and closed the door and all that. And some of the older ones, I've heard them say that they had their room closet or their prayer room, their prayer closet, and that's great. That's no problem. But I think it was Smith Wigglesworth. Somebody was asking him, well, how do you pray all the time? When it tells us to pray without ceasing. And he goes, well, I don't pray all the time. But he said, I constantly have my mind on it. But he said, it's probably, I don't go more than 2 hours without praying for something, praying for somebody, or praying for something all the time. So that's pretty constant when we're doing that. When we're constantly keeping our mind on it, that we need to be, that's what God's telling, or Jesus was telling his disciples, to keep our focus on what it is. Now, there are different prayers too. There's prayer which you're concentrating, you're trying, what do they call it? You're interceding for somebody, and that's, and then there's prayer when you're going down the street. Keep me from all these crazy lunatics out here. You're driving down the street. But we're not closing our eyes or anything like that. We're driving. We're just, keep us going. So that's what it means to keep in our heart, make sure, and it'll get deeper here in a little bit. The whole matter of this, what Jesus is telling them, is what's in your heart. If that's in your heart to be an actor, to get the praise, that's not right. Because they were in a critical period right here they followed Jesus for a little while. They started gaining attention, had a lot of people flocking around them. When that happens, people want to be a part of that. They want to go see what's happening. They want, just like Asbury Revival here earlier this year. Everybody wants to go see how that revival's. What are they doing? What's happening? What's transpiring? And that's okay because we need more of that. But it's like it's prayer that started it. The kids started it. They wanted to start. Okay, well we'll have worship leaders and they'll start taking. They said no. We're going to be doing it just like we did before. Whoever feels led to do it, they'll get up there and do it. Whoever, after they're tired, they'll sit down for a while. So that's where asking the Lord, the leading from the Lord, we have to understand. Sometimes we don't get anything from it on what we need to do. So what do we do then? We usually, and I think this is okay, based on, we pray, of course, keep on praying for it, but then you go ahead and do what you feel led to do. And most of the time, if you've read through the Bible and it's not anything against the Word or anything like that, you go on about your business, and if it's not right, God will usually let you know that that's not right. That wasn't the path to go in. Because this is a walk that we go through, and sometimes we have to learn ourselves. You can tell a baby or a young child so many times, don't stick your finger in that light socket or don't stick something in your light socket. And when they do it, then they figure out, I don't want to do that again. That's something that, that hurts. And that's what we as Christians learn as we go through life. Some of the things that we can do, personally, I may do something and you maybe not be able to do because it affects you differently than it affects me. Now, that's the little stuff. It's not talking about the big stuff that was talking about before, the murder and all that stuff. He's saying, you're talking about the murder. I'm not going to murder anybody, but if you murder in your heart, you're doing the same thing. So that's what he's bringing it back to the heart. What's in your heart? If your heart's not right, just because you don't do something doesn't make you good. That's kind of what I'm getting out of this.
I either have read this or I want to say it was Brother Freeman that said it. I couldn't say that for certain. But,
yeah.
The mother used to pull up her apron over her head.
Oh, yeah?
And she would pray, with her apron covered. And they knew when the apron was
time.
over her head,
yeah.
They kind of walked softly and kind of, didn't make brackets and stuff. And,
yeah.
And I thought, sometimes people need, she didn't evidently go into a closet, but
right.
She was in her house,
sure.
And she still took time, even, she had her kids that was in the house.
Mm-hmm. I can see that. I can see that a lot because they don't have a lot of time to spend to do that, but they take a few minutes out of what they can.
Growing up, especially when we moved down to Berry Hill, we got a little older. We had a little coat closet just as you come in the house, and I can look back and I can remember coming home from school, and my mother, she worked part time. She worked in the cafeteria, and so she was when she was gone when we were gone, and she was home. But sometimes she'd get home. One of the first things she'd do, she spent her time, and I can remember coming in. I'm 76,
sure,
and I still can hear her pray. And Sister Martha Barnett. One time we were it's one of the first church I ever pastored, and we were going to Burndale, and then we moved to Oklahoma City. I got a job with Lock Supply and drove a truck. And one day I had a little extra time, so I hadn't seen Brother Aubrey and Sister Martha, and I pulled up in front of the house, jumped out of the truck, and jumped up on the porch. Back then, a lot of people didn't have air conditioning. Might have a swamp cooler or something in the door. stood there and heard her pray. No, I was there, but she began to pray for the people. She prayed for this night. And, it was, prayer is awesome, okay? It's one of our greatest weapons, both offensive and defensive.
That's right.
And we don't do it for show, we do it for real.
No, and I think that's why there's, to me, two different thoughts. That some of the more the churches that they're more liturgical, I guess, they have the certain prayers that they pray, the people pray, and that's the only prayers that they know. It's in the book, they open it up, read it. And I think those are okay, because the actual Jewish people had certain prayers that they prayed too every morning. And I think that's all right until it becomes a rut. If you're just doing it to be doing it and not reaching what you need to reach out of it, reaching God, then that's a problem. So I know when I was going downtown to the Bible study on Tuesdays, a lot of times he would bring in a lot of the liturgy from other parts, other churches that's there, and they even had a service where they combined 2 or 3 of the different types of churches there in town. But a lot of times that's the only one actually doing the praying is the priest, and the other people are just repeating his words, or the Father, or whatever it might be. This has to come from the heart. It goes back to the heart again. What do you need? What is Father? And the back part of this, we'll find out more about that. But it says that they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the corners of the streets. That's where people can see them. Corners of the synagogues. The synagogue, several of them that we was in when we was in Israel, this is huge compared to what the synagogues were then. It's about half the size, it seemed like. Maybe even a fourth of some of the sizes that we was in. It was very small. Now there's some big ones, but not very many.
Several years ago, one of the churches we were attending, they showed a film, and the title was Super Christian. And the guy had to make sure that whenever the offering plate was coming around, he had his wallet out.
Yeah.
Shelling the money out in that, or if they were singing, he was making sure he was singing the loudest of anybody. And then if they were praying, he would go into a long orientation, and like the Pharisees, then it would show him after he left the church doing all sorts of other things.
Yeah.
After he draw attention to himself in there.
Yeah, you gotta keep that standard. This is what you do. If you're setting that standard, you gotta keep the standard, not only in church. 7 and 8, do you want to read that for us, Bertha?
Okay. So when you pray, use not vain repetitions, as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. But not ye, therefore, like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things you have need of before ye ask him. And
That's okay.
when you pray, do not.
No, that's all right. You don't have to read that.
My good.
Yeah, you're good. It says the right kind of prayer doesn't use vain repetitions. What is vain repetitions? Vain repetitions.
Same prayer.
It's the same words. You're using the same words. And I don't want to jump on the bandwagon here per se, but a lot of the worship music today, it's a phrase, which is maybe a great phrase, but they just repeat it over and over and over, and that song goes for 10 minutes over and over and over. That kind of reminds me of when Elijah was fighting the prophets of Baal. What'd they do? They went, no, well, that wasn't that one. That was a different one. But Paul, when they were and they were crying out to Demetrius or one of the gods, whatever the gods, And they did that for like 2 or 3 hours. And that's not, that's just not what he wants from us. It's performing, and it's just what he wants from us, again, is our desires out of our heart. What do we need? Not so much our wants, but what problems do we have that need to be solved today? What problems that's going on in our lives that people that we know need help? Things like that. That's what he wants. And every day, that may be the same for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. So it may seem like you're vain repetition. I've heard some of the pastors say, oh yeah, you say it, pray it, and that's done. Don't mention it again. And it's like, well, okay. But sometimes it's not that he's hard of hearing or he forgets or anything like that, but it's to remind us that I'm still praying for that person. I haven't seen it happen. Now, it might happen before me or it might never happen. But I'm emphasizing what I would like from God on that. And it's not what he would do for me. It's that is the petition that we're bringing before him.
A lot of people have a prayer list,
Yeah.
for family members in our state, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera.
I got one on my phone. That's what I go
and
through.
they go over those names, like every day.
Yeah, because those problems haven't gone away.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do. I take them off the list. Sometimes I add more people on, as they go back and forth. And that's not a vain repetition. That's praying. To me, what this means is because you're earnest with God that I want this to happen. So much of it goes on further into this, but it gets into fasting too a little bit later on. And it's like, well, if you really need something and you fast for it, that's putting a little bit more emphasis on it. That God's really seeing that you will do without your daily food to do, fast. So that's part of what the vain repetitions. One rabbi said, whoever is long in prayer is heard. That's what the rabbi said. Another saying has it, whenever the righteous make their prayer long, their prayer is heard. That's what Barclay said. It said another famous Jewish prayer began like this: blessed, praised, glorified, exalted, and honored, magnified, and lauded be the name of the Holy One. And that's okay. But that's just kind of, okay, you said it. And it's, he's all of those things. But you're just saying it to extend your prayer. Jesus' prayers, for the most part, was fairly short. Some of the prayers that we saw, Elijah's prayer, wasn't very long at all on the top of the mountain. Those guys cutting themselves and jumping up and down went all day. And he said, your God's sitting in there on the potty or something, because he ain't coming. So he prayed to God, and it's just a few sentences. Kaboom! The fire fell, and everything was burned up, licked up. So it says one can pray long, but to the wrong God. It's you're making whatever it is, you want the attention here again. And this is where it goes into where it's talking about the Artemis. There it was. Great is Artemis of the Ephesians. They said that for 2 hours, Paul said, when they were there in writing his epistle of the Ephesians. Prayer requires more of the heart than of the tongue. The eloquence of prayer consists in the fervency of desire and the simplicity of faith. Most of the times, I kind of love to hear little kids pray, because they get to the point and they don't have to carry it out too long. They just, God bless mommy and daddy, and good night. Things like that, or God bless my little animal that's hurting or whatever. It's just, to me, that's what God wants from us. What is ever that's burdening our heart.
That's what he wants, the sincerity of our heart.
That's right. That's right. I like, in this particular context, I like the NIV. It said it translates the phrase vain repetitions. Keep on babbling. You just keep on talking and talking and talking. I was at the doctor's office today, and the doctor was telling me she was coming back. It was on an airplane for some reason, or somewhere like that. But anyway, this lady was talking, and she would not shut up. You know, it was in the doctor's office. She could hear it. I guess that's where it was. It was in the doctor's office. She could. It was a dentist office. That's what it was. And she was just going on and on. Said finally he put one of them things in her mouth the whole time. You know, and she said, "Boy, I'm sure glad you did that." Because at my old, now the new days, my dentist office, there's only one person in it. But a long time ago, and the first dentist I went to, he had like 4 or 5 chairs in there, you know, and he might have a patient just go back and forth between the patients. Working at it, so I don't know. But that's, sometimes that's it, that you just shut up. Okay. Okay, verse 9, Janet, you want to read that for us, 9 through 13?
After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Okay. So this is the prayer that we hear, the Lord's Prayer, a lot. We've heard it a lot. And it's the Lord's Prayer. It's Jesus' teaching, because the disciples, they were fishermen. They were tax collectors. They were, you know, all these different things that they needed to learn how Jesus wanted them to pray. And this is a very simple prayer, and that's what he said. This is the way, this is the model that you need to follow. And it starts out, of course, with our Father. This is the first time in the Bible that we see God referred to as our Father. Now we see it later on in a lot of different places. But that's where it comes in, that he is recognizing that he is the Father of all. He brought everything about. And we can go through, we've heard different messages on this. We've heard different, you know, we're not going to go through individually which one of these are, but we do know that this is something that he's telling us we need to follow this, and there's a specific path. First, with our Father, we start out with our Father, and you know, we recognize we hold his name high and don't want to bring reproach upon him, and the kingdom that's getting ready to come. And we want to bring about what he wants for earth. That's what he wanted in the very beginning. He wanted us to follow him. And with Adam and the transgression that Adam applied to all of us, that made it difficult, or more difficult than it is. And then it goes about, give us daily, our daily breads. One of the things that kind of struck me in reading through the Bible, and it's different today than it was back then, we work, and as we work, we're anticipating something, we're going to get paid, and then we're going to do that, and we're saving for something. It may be, you know, at the end of the week I get to buy groceries, or I get to do this, or I get to do that, or you save a little bit here and you get to go on vacation. What he's telling them, back in the Old Testament, they didn't get, you know, we get paid typically either monthly or weekly or bi-weekly, something like that. They got paid every day. When they'd go do a job, they'd get paid every day. Now the fisherman is a little bit different from them, because if they didn't catch no fish, they didn't get paid. So they can go a long time, or they may catch a lot of fish and get a lot in, kind of like a farmer with his crop. But he's telling us, apply it to each and every day. Whatever you have to look forward to today, then you look forward to that. The bread that you have, the problems going through, don't let the things build up on us that's going to be tomorrow, the next day. Because we can worry ourselves to death.
Worry is not God.
That's right. We can be concerned about something, but if it eats us up, if that's all we're concerned about, all the time, that's a problem. Because it's basically saying God can't handle it. That's what it's saying. And lead us not into the temptation. And we talked about that before. That's the testing period that's beyond our capability. He will test us or allow us to be tested because we have to be able to show him that we can be trusted in some things. Through Adam and Eve and everybody on down from then, it shows that we can't be trusted unless we rely upon him. And there's a lot of scripture in here on that, so we're going to skip to page 10, the bottom of 10. Harold, you want to read that for us, 14 and 15?
For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you forgive not men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses.
So that's very difficult. A lot of times we don't want, we even, things happen to us and we said, oh boy, I sure don't like them. I'm not ever going to be friends with them again. And there's sometimes that's okay. Because we don't have to like everybody. We need to love everybody as Jesus loved us. But sometimes some people just rub us the wrong way. And that's one of the things we need to pray. Make my attitude so I don't reflect on him badly on him, because my personality is not like them. So we're each different. And just because they are that way, that doesn't make them bad at all. We have to have the salesman of the world, I guess. The insurance salesman or somebody like that. There are some people that they just have the gift of gab, like that they could talk to the wall and carry on a pretty good conversation. I'm more of the opposite. I don't, unless I got something to say, I usually try not to say that much.
I have problems sometimes not saying enough, and then when I do I say too much.
Yeah, well, communication is sometimes difficult because we already know what we're thinking. And just like today, I was in the doctor's office and was talking, and I was telling her this morning I was out picking up sticks because the wind was pretty hard today, and she said, yeah, we was gone last week when that big windstorm come through, and she said, we live in Owasso and blah, 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 like this. I said, okay, well, I live on 96th Street. We didn't have much deal, and it was just kind of silent for a minute. She wasn't really saying anything. I said, in Owasso. Oh, yeah, I know where that's at. Because there's 96th Street all over Tulsa. But, so we do have, I was thinking, okay, she knew I was from Owasso. She didn't know I was from Owasso. She didn't look at my record or anything. She's got an address, the doctor does, but they don't look at that. So we have to, it's part of it in talking to people. That's what's so good about God. God knows what we're talking about. Now, sometimes we don't know. we think we know, but that's when it comes in with the utterances and we're just crying out to God. I don't know what's going on, but please help me.
Sometimes,
There it is.
hey,
It's on.
it's sometimes like you think you know what you're saying, all of a sudden you say to yourself, what did I just say?
Yeah, that's right.
Or your spouse completely misunderstands what you just said.
Well, that happens too. That's one of the things. We're not on the same wavelength here. Wasn't talking about it, or I wasn't listening. She was watching television and it's talking about something, and she said, "Boy, that's what? What are you saying? I don't have a clue what you were talking about." It's just the way it is. we do have to concentrate, and make sure that that's happening.
Years ago, I got in a habit of every day on the way to work, I was praying, God help me keep my enemies at bay, just the whole 9 yards, but I was dreading how they was gonna treat me when I got in. And after that went along for a while, then the Lord revealed to me, I was praying the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
Lord, help me to work this out.
That's right.
That they're not my enemies.
That's right.
Sometimes we can think we're praying for the right thing, and God has to open our eyes that it's all right to pray about that, but you need to be going in this line.
That's right.
Here.
We are, the tension's on us because we're thinking, wow, they're hurting us.
Yeah.
And like 16 through 18. Moreover, okay, and that means in addition to what he's already told us about, when ye fast, be not as the hypocrites of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear unto men to fast. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou fastest, anoint thine head, wash thy face, that thou appear not unto men to fast, but unto the Father which is in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Kind of goes back to when they were troubled, they would rip their clothes, throw ashes on their head, cry out, oh, everybody knows, well, what's the matter with him? Something's going on with him, But it's like, be that calm. Yeah, you may have turmoil inside, but that's just you. You need to work it out. Here it's talking about fasting per se. Whatever you're doing, don't do it for attention. We can fast, and if you're careful about it, a lot of people don't even know that you're fasting.
They're not supposed to know.
They're not supposed to know. It's something between you
Usually your
and
family
God.
members know.
Usually, but sometimes you can get by that too.
You're not around them very
When
much.
you don't eat with them, at the same
They
time
ask you,
period.
why aren't you eating?
Yeah, or something like that. So, but that's part of it, that we need to be careful that we're doing it for the right purposes, just like Harold was saying. Here it tells us that, and when it's praying, it goes back to praying. I didn't bring it out, but it says in there, they pray 3 times a day, morning, noon, and the evening. That's the 3 times that the Pharisees said that they prayed. And that goes back to a certain time period. If you want to read about it, you can read more about it. But it makes sense why they set that up. But it's like, okay, if that's the only time you're fasting, or the only time you're praying, or the only time you're not doing it for the right reason. It's kind of, I'm not saying that it does kind of supercharge you a little bit. It brings you down because you're physically drained. You need to have that nourishment through the day or days or whatever time period that you're going through. But then some people, they say, I'm going to fast from sin. It brings that out here. I'm like, I don't think that's in the Bible. I don't see where they gives you a license to sin. That's what Paul's kind of writing about, but that's kind of weird. But some people, I guess, they take it all different ways. But it says when you fast, don't go about, don't go back with a sad face. Wash your face, clean it up, and act like it's a normal day. Go on about your business. 19 to 21, Brother Epperson.
Lay not up for yourself treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourself treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
A couple paragraphs down from that was a little survey that they did in 1992. The American Dream said those who earned 25, they asked a question, how much money would you have to make to be living the American dream? You can see this is dated because it said those who earn $25,000 or less thought they'd need about $54,000, and they'd be just living the dream. Those that were earning $100,000 said, well, if I could make $192,000, that would be great. I'd be, living the dream then. And it's kind of like you ask a millionaire, how much money more do you need? And the response is usually $1 more. They always want more money because that's the thing. It's things, and what it is. It's not a problem with things. It's a problem they're putting their trust in those things. They think that can take care of them. That money will buy them out of trouble. Money will keep them from getting sick. Money will do this. No, I guarantee you, if you get sick enough, you can run through money pretty quick. Or if you have a car accident or your house gets blown up or whatever, money goes fast. So it's one of those things we need to be content. Brings about in when Paul was telling Timothy in 1 Timothy 6:6, now godliness with contentment is great gain. If we can be content in where we're at, now, it may not be much money, but if we're serving God and doing what He wants and helping out, you're content with that.
Well, money can't buy contentment.
No, but a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel, like I said, well, if I can just get a little bit more money, I'll be happy.
And so how much is too much?
Well, that's right. How much is too much?
I've been in trouble like all these years.
One of the things that the pharaohs of Egypt, when they were buried with treasures, gold, whatever. Some of them even were buried with their servants when they were living. The servants were alive, and they buried them with the pharaoh because they wanted to have all this in the afterlife. They thought that would make them, there'd be something there for them. But that's not the case. As it says, we come out of dust, dust will return. That's just one of those things.
Was that years ago, Liz, when we lived over in Porter, she worked in Muskogee, and this little lady, she was pretty well hooked up. They were talking about money one day, and she said, money don't make you happy. They said, well, I'm already happy, I just need a little more money.
Yeah. Yep.
It goes against what society,
Right.
says you need, and yeah, you can have a lot of money and it doesn't fulfill you.
Well, I can't remember who I was reading about. I think it was Brad Pitt. Reading something about the other day. He had to sell one of his houses because he was not living in it there much, hadn't been there in a while and all that. It was so many $1 million somewhere. They said, oh yeah, he had another house here in France and another house over here, another house over here. And it even goes to the fact that when we were working, there were a lot of people, they had summer houses, on Grand Lake or out in Colorado. It's okay, I guess. But I'm like, I only live one place at a time. If I want to go out there, I'll rent a hotel or something, I'm not buying the whole thing. I'm not going to live out there for
It's kind of prestige.
6 months. It is, and that's exactly right. They would go about and say, yeah, I was out in so-and-so, wherever, Colorado, or I was down in Florida in my beach house. Okay. But I hope that, some people do it for sanity. I know they've got to get out every once in a while. But still, it's like, I don't know, that's not me.
But even them, as rich as they ever may be, movie stars, if they're good actors, they're usually pretty rich.
Oh, sure.
They have more than one house and that kind of thing. But when you touched on a real Bronco, what if they were critically ill and
Mhm.
it cost them most every dollar they had.
Yeah.
Would you humble them, or would they just constantly want more?
It's just one of those things. It's,
Because I've been through this, and I wasn't rich.
yeah, yeah. It's, God will help us in what we need. No, having a plane, having this, having all these things.
It doesn't humble them.
It doesn't humble them, and they'll come back and they'll say, well, I need it for my business. One of the jobs that I worked at when I worked, and, you know, we met regularly with the CEO and all that. He had a plane. Of course, he rented it to the company to use it, some exorbitant amount an hour, you know, but because it cost a lot to run a plane. You know, I didn't know how much it cost, but I found out. But that's one of the things that we have to. Yeah, for his business, he had to go around. It's like, well, can't you call him? You know, in the pandemic, that kind of shut everything down, and everybody started calling people, doing the Zoom calls and everything. We used to, when we would go evaluate companies, we would fly down to the company, get a presentation, and all that. Well, now with technology, when I last left, we didn't go anywhere. We just pop it up on a screen, television screen, and they'd be in their office showing us stuff on it. We'd be in our office, you know. So it's one of those things. It is more of a look how big I am. I've got a plane. I've got this. I've got 2 houses. I've got a condo in Colorado. I got whatever it might be.
That'd be one I go.
Somebody said, you spend money you don't have to buy things you don't need to impress people you don't like.
That's right. That's exactly right. Let's see. Did we run through everybody? Where we're at?
I think we're 20.
22. Who's supposed to read next? Iris, are you up? Okay. Bottom of page 14. 22 and 23.
The light of the body is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness?
Okay. Talks about the body, the lamp of the body is the eye. The way we see, that's the way we interpret things. We see it. Most of us do that way. It says in the words in Hebrew, says there seems to be a deliberate double entendre here. Hapelos, taking up not only the theme of undivided loyalty, but that of detachment from material concern, hence generosity. So we are happier and more content when we have God's heart of generosity. But if we are not generous, it is as if your whole body will be full of darkness. Our selfish, miserly ways cast darkness over everything that we think or do. I go back to the Christmas story. The old geezer that, Cratchit wanted to have him work on Christmas half a day. And that's just one of the things. Some people, that's their whole goal, to make money, to do whatever it is, no matter what time or whenever it is. And if that's your way, if that's what your eye sees, that's your whole body goes that way. Yep. 24, Bertha? On page 16.
No man can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. Ye cannot serve God and man.
Since we are not in the slave master business, most of us here, we don't understand that. Back then, they had a person that was in charge. When they had, and the slaves, I'm not talking about forced slavery, I'm talking about ones where the people would say, I want to go work for you, I want to do this work. And they would, what we read in the deal, they put their ear up there and they bore through it. That showed them that they're their servant, okay? So here he's saying you only have one servant. One slave, one master. The servant obeys that master. You can't have two masters, and that's what it's talking about, God, and it talks about mammon here, but that's another word for the world, or gives several terms here. Some think it's the name of a pagan god, other thinks it's to trust or confide in. What it says, it's clearly mammon is materialism or wealth personalized, personified. The mammon is actually neutral. It's kind of like, what is it? The love of money is the root of all evil. It's not money. Money is just money. But it's when somebody gets uncontrolled about it, it's where it takes hold of it.
It goes back to verse 21, where your treasure is.
Where your treasure is, that's where your heart. Okay, 25. You want to read that for us, Janet?
Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat or what you shall drink, nor yet for your body, what you shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body than raiment?
Now you're talking about at the time, like I said, where they worked the day and they got the wages for the day, and then after the day was finished, they would go down and buy, give the money to the wife, or the wife, or if you pick it up on the way home, buy the money for the bread or buy the money for the wheat, and they'd have to make the wheat, make food for the day, the next day. So that's what he's saying. Don't worry about that. It's going to come, it's going to happen. But it's more than meat, and more than the clothes that you have. So many of us today, I've got so many clothes in my closet. I've got probably 25 polos, different types of polos. And since I quit, retired, this is all I wear now until it gets winter. And then I got shirts. I told Darla this last winter, I said, I need more of the flannel shirts because I get cold in here, But I've got long sleeve shirts. I got so many dress pants now. I don't wear them except maybe Sunday or funerals. It's about all that we wear anymore. Several suit coats in there. We got so many. And that's kind of what he's saying as far as just go in there and grab. Back then they didn't have all that. You got two tunics. Which tunic are you going to wear? Or what? And they got that tunic and they wore it for 3 or 4 days the way they did. Even back then, even when we were kids, I can remember one of my cousins be playing baseball or something out there. He'd try to get out taking his bath, He didn't want to take his bath that evening. The next day he put his own clothes back on. And that's okay, but sometimes they were pretty, rolled in the dirt and everything.
I remember watching VeggieTales, one of them, and it was talking about materialism and stuff, that you accumulate. You think you have to keep accumulating and stuff. And it was really a good lesson, because it's just the more you have, the more it weighs you down.
It does.
And ties you up, and it was like, you don't have to have everything under the sun.
And there's people today, they have the minimalist. Yeah, I can't say that very well. And they go to the other extreme. You go in their house and they have a chair, and they might have another chair if they have a guest, but if they don't have guests that often, you may be out of luck. And we're probably the opposite. You walk into our house, we collected junk forever, and you've got, we're not hoarders, but it sure looks like it when you walk in there. So we can get around our house, okay? We don't stack it up on sides or anything like that.
Well, the one of the businesses that's really doing good is those storage.
Oh, storage unit. That's what I want. I bought one. I had one built outside the house. That's the only thing. If we can't live now in here, we don't need it. And what we do have, I need to get rid of it. If it's breaking or it's not working for me, I was facing that the other day.
That's one thing I need to say. All these years, I have never done rented storage or had one in my yard.
Yeah.
Because I'm a true believer that if you're going to store it, and you haven't used it for at least a year, you don't need it.
Well, we got one because we
Well, I
needed
mean,
it
not
for
on-
our yard
not on
tractor.
that kind of thing, yes, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about just.
Yeah.
nick-
Well, some of and
stuff.
some people do. I know they got 3 storage sheds, you know, and one of my relatives here recently that passed, they had, I don't know how many storage units in the different places they lived. Then when their child took it over to take it, they brought it all to that one house. We couldn't get in the house. Literally, there was a path, and it was just junk on every side. And we spent a week, you know, getting rid of a lot of junk, because that's what it was, and trying to make sure we could sell all this stuff, or whatever they wanted to do with it, give it away. We gave a bunch of it
When I was
away.
growing up, we had 2 kids that
Actually,
lived
2
in the
blocks
house,
away last
and one bathroom, one closet, so we didn't keep anything.
Don't ask me, boy, we get time. One guy thought he hit it rich. We had a garage sale several years ago, and I was a Star Wars fan, so I had a whole bunch of Star Wars books. Man, he thought I get for like $10. I sold him like 50 books or something like that. He thought he hit the jackpot, you know. But it cleaned it out. I still have a lot more, you know. I don't have any more. I got 1 Star Wars book now, I think, but Daniel bought it for me for Christmas several years ago. But anyway, we need to finish up. 26 through 30, I'll go ahead and read it. Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than them? Which of you by taking thought can add 1 cubit to his stature? And why take ye thought for raiment? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. And yet I say unto you that even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. Wherefore if God so clothe the grass of the field, which today is, and tomorrow is cast into the oven, shall he not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith? I'm going to go through the rest of these so we get finished. 31 through 32, therefore take no thought, saying, what we shall eat, or what shall we drink, or wherewith shall we be clothed? For all these things do the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have now a need of all these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Take therefore no thought for the morrow, for tomorrow shall take thought of the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Here again, it's don't worry about what's going on. The birds, they get fed. You know, even when we're not around. In the winter, I try to feed the birds. I have water out for them. In the summer, I try to feed the hummingbirds. I'm like, well, you know, if I'm gone for a week or something, they'll have to find it elsewhere. But they'll find it. There's plenty of flowers and all these things. God will take care of them, and he'll take care of us too. Sometimes we, you know, may not have the newest Nike shoes or whatever that they have, and $100 tennis shoes or $200, whatever it is now. But yeah, it's just like, and that's crazy because you need something for your feet. It doesn't have to be because everybody else has it. That's what it is in school today, it seems like. They gotta, you know, if you're not cool, and, you know, it's like, well, these kids didn't come through the hand-me-down phase. Now, I was the oldest, so, and then my sister, she didn't get many of my hand-me-downs because she was a girl, but I had a fair amount of garage sale stuff. You know, it may not have been new, things like that we'd get around, and it's just one of those things. Sometimes you can find it, and you don't have to, because it's just like these clothes. They go on and on and on about these jeans that are all ripped up, and you pay $100 for them. It's like, good night, I wouldn't pay money for something that's already tore up, but that's the style. And I'm like, somebody is fooling somebody. They went down and got a bunch of Goodwill stuff, and they're selling it. slapped a different label on it or something, I don't know.
You know, in verse 33, I like that verse real well. You know, there's an order that
Right.
you're supposed to put things in.
That's right.
And the first thing is the kingdom of God and His righteousness.
Right.
If you put that first, then you don't have to worry about the other things.
Everything will fall into place.
Yeah, but so many people won't put that first.
No, that's the last thing they do.
Yeah.
And they're all, well, why did God do this for? Well, how long have you been talking about, trying to solve it yourself? That's normally what we want to do.
Or how many times, do people say, oh, I've got to work and can't go to church, because I have to work so many hours and different, it's all about, putting God first.
Had this one, I've read this one story before, and said, well, the guy, he prayed to get a job, and he got a job, a better job, and he was paying his tithes before, but he wasn't making very much money, and he asked for a better job. He got a better job, but then he started working more hours and stuff, and then he's like, well, I'm working so many hours, I got to take care of this, and I can't pay my tithes because I've got too many bills now. And the pastor said, well, I'll pray that you get a lesser job then, and we'll just go back to the way it was. And that's sometimes what we need. I mean, we take advantage of it as far as what's going to help me.
Well, I like it when they tell me that, oh, they don't need you in church.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to church.
Some people do that. They
Would
say,
you show me that in the Bible?
well, they feel like, well, I get it from watching TV, or I get it from listening to the radio. It's like, you're not getting the fellowship. That's what it tells you. Don't forget the fellowship of the saints. Being together with like-minded people.
But when someone says that, just out of laziness. Yeah.
Well, it's a cop-out, is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Janet, that of all my years of being raised around church, in church, in pastoring, if, like you said, that order, there in 3 John, when John was talking to Gaius, he said, I would that you prosper and be in health. That order,
right?
Even as your soul prospers,
right?
And that works.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're going to get tried once in a while, okay? But it works. I've seen people that kept jobs when other people wouldn't keep jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I remember talking one time with a couple, and they were new converts, and they hadn't been raised around church. And he was talking to another guy that had been raised in church all his life, and they were talking about tithing, just tithing. And the one that had been serving the Lord for all these years said, I can't afford to.
Yeah, yeah.
And the young convert, in the years that he had been, he said, I can't afford not to.
That's right.
I can't afford not to do. And to me, again, I don't want to say, I don't want my right hand knowing what my left hand is doing, but I feel such a blessing when I'm writing a check to the church in my tithes or an offering, and I'm thinking, God, I thank you.
Yeah, have that available.
That I have that, and that that your church is able to exist because of good, wonderful people that feel like I feel. And as Sister Jan said, we have that structure. Again, there's nothing wrong with structure. Sometimes, again, He knows what we need.
Well, that's why He gave the disciples a model prayer. They didn't know how to do this. They'd see Him go off and pray, and it's like, what are you talking about? How are you doing? In there, one of them talks about when this guy got robbed. If you want to read through it, it talks about, and people could lay it all aside. Well, I got robbed. Make a big deal of it. What he did is said, well, I thank you that although I was robbed, I didn't have very much. They didn't kill me, and they didn't do this, and all these different things. He was going about it a whole different way than a lot of people would. Oh, I got mugged, and they did these criminals and all this, and I'll lock them up. But he was just the opposite of that. Yeah, it's bad, but we need to make the best out of it that we can. Because sometimes things happen in this world, and we just have to, hopefully not a whole lot has happened to us, but it does, and we still need to know that God will be there for us. So, well, thanks for sticking with us tonight. Appreciate everybody.
You know, she likes working.
Yeah, and it's brighter than all the other seasons.
Yeah, that's what it is.